Oh. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to CoachX Live with the Institute of Coaching. My name is Jeffrey Hull. I'm the Executive Director of the Institute of Coaching, and I am super excited to have with me here today not only a personal friend for me personally, but a great friend of the Institute of Coaching, Chip Conley, who has an amazingly wonderful new book out called Learning to Love Midlife, 12 Reasons Why Life Gets Better with Age, which is hitting the New York Times and Amazon bestseller lists as we speak. And we are privileged to have Chip here. He's just off a stint on Good Morning America and the Today Show. So I'm a little humbled that he's willing to take time to talk to our little Institute of Coaching, but we have a global audience.
Yes.
So I want to welcome everyone. And we haven't started to see the stream, but we will hopefully start to see the welcome folks from people all over the world. So do say hello and let us know where you are. It's always so exciting to see the coaches coming in from all over the world. And if you have a question for Chip as we go along, we'll see what we can do to try to fit in a couple of those questions. Obviously, the time flies. So for those of you who are not familiar with Chip Conley, and I'm sure many of you are, Chip is a best-selling author, and he's really the founder not only of what's called the Modern Elder Academy, and I can honestly say I can speak as a graduate because I was an alum of this wonderful retreat center that he created in Baja, California, and now in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And he is a former executive coach, mentor to the startup that became much more than a startup called Airbnb. He's also, in his own right, a very successful entrepreneur, started a boutique hotel company a couple decades ago that became one of the largest boutique hotel companies across America. So he's a very successful business person. He is just a really special human being, taking up this idea of wisdom at midlife. And it's certainly relevant for all of us coaches, whether we do life coaching or leadership coaching or positive psychology or well-being coaching. I mean, we now live in a world where there's 4 or 5 different generations all working together in organizations. And the idea of reinventing yourself along the way, all the way up through 70s, maybe 80s, is something that Chip has taken on in a really big way and having a huge impact and a positive energy and inspiration for those of us, including me, that are baby boomers that are, still trying to figure out what we want to be when we grow up. So Chip, I am really, really excited to have you here with us today. And as we watch folks come in from everywhere, I guess the best place I'd love to start is a little bit about the Modern Elder Academy, because it's a special experience that I had with you, but also, where did the idea for you to think about wisdom? I mean, I know you in the book, you mentioned that you were 28 when you started thinking about wisdom. So talk to us a little bit about that journey and what led to this book.
Well, let me start by saying I'm honored to be here with you. I'm excited to be joining you at your conference in Boston in the spring. And I will just say that, if you'd said to me when I was younger, like someday I would be running a midlife wisdom school, I would have laughed because I'm not sure I would have embraced midlife or wisdom. But I will just say that when I was at Airbnb, after I sold my boutique hotel company, and I joined Airbnb as their in-house mentor, they called me the Modern Elder. And I was like, you're making fun of my age. I was 52. The average age in the company was 26. And the 3 founders said, no, Chip, you're a Modern Elder because you're as curious as you are wise.
Wow.
And I was like, I like that alchemy of curiosity and wisdom.
Yeah.
And so that's really how I spent my 7.5 years there, 4 years full-time, 3.5 years as a part-time strategic advisor. And while I was going through that time, I had prior to joining Airbnb, I had a really rotten last half of my 40s. My 45 to 50 was just terrible. And I called it the midlife crisis. Now I would call it the midlife chrysalis, because actually that's the midlife journey between a caterpillar and a butterfly. Is it's dark and gooey, but it's where the transformation happens. And so long story short is I started getting really curious in my 50s about how we take our wisdom, how we take our gifts, how we take our learnings and make them relevant to other people. Because I deeply believe that wisdom is really your painful life lessons that are the raw material for your future wisdom.
So true.
But it's about metabolizing those experiences in a way that serves both you and others, because wisdom is a social good. Last thought on this is the thing that you mentioned is a practice that coaches could do with their clients. Here's what I started doing at age 28, 35 years ago. Every weekend, and I was an idiot. I was a 28-year-old CEO. I'd started my company 2 years earlier. I didn't know anything.
I don't know that I would say you were an idiot.
Well, I was young. Let's just say I was old enough to be stupid. So I was 28 and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing in this job. So I started a practice, and every weekend I would sit down with a journal and I would write down 4, 6, 8 different bullet points of what I'd learned that week. And then I'd say, okay, here's the lesson and here's how it's going to serve me in the future. And I did that as a basic weekly practice. I now do it monthly. And with my leadership team at MEA, at the Modern Elder Academy, we do it quarterly as a group. But the idea of making sense of what you've learned, right, and thinking about how it will serve you moving forward. This is really why I think coaches are the midwives for midlife epiphanies.
I couldn't agree more.
You help, as coaches, you help your clients to be able to understand their life experiences, and with objectivity and with love. And that is a really important 2 ingredients. The objectivity allows them to see things they wouldn't see, the blind spots. And the love is when they feel like you're the confidant. You're the one who's going to give them some confidence. And so yes, that's how MEA came about. We opened 6 years ago. We have over 4,000 people who've gone through the program. Almost 1,000 of them have been coaches. And
wow,
so
that's interesting.
Coaches really love MEA,
of course,
for their own personal development, but also for their professional development. And it's a midlife wisdom school. So what is midlife? Midlife is the life stage between early adulthood and later adulthood. And some people consider it 35 to 75. But
I'd love to talk to you about that a little bit, because
please.
I loved my experience at MEA, and I loved meeting you, and I loved being with this amazing group. And as a baby boomer, also kind of going through those.
You're a young baby boomer.
I'm a young baby boomer.
Yes.
Actually, a little bit older than.
Jeff's 64. I'm 63. I mean, that's not the year we were born. That's
we've been outed.
That's our age. Yeah, I just outed you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm out. What can I say? No, but here's one of the things that I loved about MEA that I was unexpected to, that I didn't expect. It was that when I arrived there, I thought it would be a group of 20, 25 people that would all be in their 60s. That would all be sort of at that part of their life where they're looking at retirement or what's next or giving back. And I wanted to take advantage of a retreat to reflect on my life as a coach and where I could, up the ante on myself in terms of where I was making a difference in the world. That was one of the, and how I could become wise. That was really my theme. But I have to say, I looked around the room and they were like 4 generations. Yeah, like there were people in their 30s, 40s, 50. I mean, and so I'm curious if that was been a surprise to you. This whole definition of midlife is much broader. One of the phrases you use in your book is age fluid, which I love that phrase. But talk to us a little bit about midlife is much broader and deeper and more impactful at all different stages of life than I think we always thought about it.
Yeah, let me define age fluid first. Age fluid is when, just like gender fluid, it's when you can't be defined by a chronological age or your generation. Right. You are all the ages you've ever been, all the ages you'll ever be. And you see age as a costume. And not as, just the definition of who you are. And so there are people we've had people as young as 25 and as old as 88 come to MEA. I thought everybody would be 45 to 65. I thought
Me too.
But 75% of the people are between 45 and 65. Why do people come when they're younger? Some come because they're coaches. We have a lot of coaches, younger, if a large percentage, I'd say a third of our younger coaches, like millennials or Gen Z who come, it's mostly millennials, are coming because they're coaches and they want to understand their older clients. And they want to understand themselves. They also are very interested in this subject of wisdom and going to a midlife wisdom school and understanding how do you cultivate and harvest wisdom. We live in an era where knowledge is everywhere. It's commoditized, especially with artificial intelligence. But what's scarce often is wisdom. So we, as a wisdom school, we help people understand how to mine their wisdom and to develop it. But I think the other thing that people and younger people, reason that they come is partly because they want to understand their clients, and that the idea that you're a younger coach with an older client, it's often the opposite. So I think a young coach wants to really accelerate their wisdom and understand the life stage of midlife. The older people, we have an 88-year-old who came twice last year, and he has he actually learned how to surf amazingly.
Wow.
While he was there in Baja. We have a campus in Baja and a campus that's opening soon in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And he's still working. So if we're, we at MEA, we have a long-term relationship with Blue Zones, the people, Dan Buettner, who started the idea of what are the longevity predictors and how do you actually influence your longevity. And so we have people who come who are in their 70s and 80s who are still working. And they're going to live to 100 or after, so they think okay, I'm still in midlife at 88, and right. So age is sort of more of a state of mind than an actual age.
I think the thing that I was really moved by and impressed by was the wisdom of the younger folks.
Yeah,
and that actually plays well for those of us in the coaching space who deal with, I know I do, senior executives who complain about the millennials, or they complain about Gen Z.
Mm-hmm.
The old, I walked to school 40 miles in a snowstorm and I worked my way up.
Okay, boomer. Okay, boomer. That's how that meme got started, was because we were saying how the fucking world works. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And we need to actually shut up. Knowledge speaks and wisdom listens.
No, I totally agree.
And how we listen as older people to younger people and learn from them. At MEA, at Airbnb, I called myself a mentor and an intern at the same time, because I was learning DQ, digital intelligence, from the young people, and they were learning EQ, emotional intelligence, from me, and we were both better off for it.
Yeah, there's no question that the opportunity for reverse mentoring, from recognizing that young people are much more driven by their values, their exploration of who they want to be, the contribution they want to make in the world. And it can be super eye-opening, I think, to recognize that wisdom is not something that comes with a number, right? It comes with a self-awareness and a self-reflection and a stepping back and actually seeing life as a journey of learning.
Yeah, if our life lessons are the raw material for our future wisdom, theoretically, you should get wiser as you get older. Right. But if you don't make sense of those lessons, and if you have a closed mind and a fixed mindset, I've met so many 30-year-olds who have more wisdom than a 70-year-old.
I have too. Yeah,
and so so wisdom is a practice. You accumulate knowledge, but you distill wisdom. And that's why accumulating knowledge is what we learn in school, and it's what we feed our brain with all of this knowledge. But at some point in our life, especially in midlife, you start to actually say, I'm no longer accumulating, I'm now distilling, because I've got enough ingredients, and now I need to make sense of those ingredients. And if someone doesn't make sense of those ingredients, then at 70, they might not be very wise.
Yeah, and they may be still on a treadmill that they've been on for 40 years.
Yeah.
And that's where we can learn from young people who refuse to get on that traditional treadmill. Yeah. And they're already on a journey of values and contribution and doing something meaningful in life. And that's the folks that I met at MEA that were younger, just incredibly powerful. So I just want to interrupt us briefly for a process check. And we have a few more minutes. So anyone, I see people coming in from all over the world. Pennsylvania and Johannesburg, South Africa. How's that for?
I love it.
So if you have a question for Chip, I will pay attention and try to grab one. So if you have one, please share. And we'll try to get to a couple of questions. But let's talk about a couple things that are in the book that you didn't get to on Good Morning America, because I love a couple of these concepts that you shared in the book that I think are really interesting for coaches.
Yes.
One of which is TQ, transitional intelligence, which is something that coaches can really grab onto and think about with their clients. And then the other one is, I guess you'd say, CI, or wisdom is crystallized intelligence.
Yes.
I love that phrase. So talk a little bit about those.
Well, let's start with the first one, the TQ.
Okay.
So my two grandfathers both had worked for the same company for 40 years, two different companies, one in Denver, one in Southern California. They never changed their employer. So back in 1960, when I was born, the average number of jobs a person had in a career was 3. Today, it's 12 or 13. So we go through a lot more change and transition today than we did in the past. And the world is changing faster than it did in the past. So everybody's got to get smarter about mastering transitions. So we came up with the term transitional intelligence, TQ, and say that it is a modern skill that we really need to teach.
Totally.
And if you go to the MEA website and you go to the bottom footer, you'll see a bunch of free resources. There's actually a link there to the anatomy of a transition. And I highly recommend. It's free. Just go download it, because it's so good for your clients. Because there's 3 stages to any transition. I won't go through the depth of this, but I'll just say there's the ending of something, there's the messy middle, and then there's the beginning of something new. Right. And once you understand that almost all transitions go through those 3 stages, and you understand the coping mechanisms through each stage, wow, you can help a client or yourself go through just about any transition.
And just about anyone that has a coach is going to find themselves in a transition.
Oh,
it's really
for
part
sure.
of what brings a coach into the dynamic, really.
That's exactly right. So this is the MEA program really has 3 key pillars: navigating transitions, cultivating purpose, owning wisdom, and then an overall umbrella, which is helping people to reframe their relationship with aging. Because Yale's Becca Levy has shown that when people shift their mindset on aging from a negative to a positive, they gain 7.5 years of additional life.
Wow.
So that's what TQ is. The other one is crystallized intelligence. And so an Arthur Brooks book, which became a national bestseller, really quite popular.
Yeah, his work is amazing.
From Strength to Strength, Harvard professor, and a good friend. He's actually on our MEA faculty for our online programs. His book's great, From Strength to Strength. It actually also profiles MEA in the book. But what he basically shows is that early in our adult life, we have fluid intelligence. We're fast, we're focused. And then as we get older, our fluid intelligence starts to decline. But what actually starts to get better is crystallized intelligence, which is our ability to think systemically, holistically, and connect the dots. It also taps into our intuition and our pattern recognition. And as we've been on the planet longer, we have seen more patterns, so you have more potential for pattern recognition.
Right.
So what he's been able to show, and as have other academics, is that crystallized intelligence sort of peaks around our early 70s. So that's, wow, really? And so I can tell you a quick anecdote on this. When I was at Airbnb, I was in charge of being the mentor to the 3 founders, but I was also the head of global hospitality, in charge of all the hosts globally, as well as some other things. But about a month into the job, Brian Chesky, who I was mentoring as the CEO, but I also was reporting to him. I was reporting to my mentee, who was 21 years younger than me. That was interesting. That's a whole different story. that I wrote about in my book, Wisdom at Work: The Making of a Modern Elder. But what I was talking to Brian about, Brian was saying, like, you can connect the dots. You can see the future. And then he said, Chip, most futurists who are famous are older. They're not younger. And so I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. And then he said, I want you to be in charge of strategy for the company too. I was like, oh, okay. This is a tech company. I've never worked in a tech company before. I'll be in charge of strategy for a tech company that wants to be a hospitality company when it grows up. And what he was really saying is that, Chip, you have crystallized intelligence. You know how to see holistically the whole picture. And that's where one of the values you can bring to the table. So So that's a skill that gets better with age. And that's part of the reason I have as the subtitle of my book, Learning to Love Midlife, 12 Reasons Why Life Gets Better with Age, because we're very clear on what gets worse with age.
Right. Right.
Hallmark cards will tell us that. But I wanted to say, here's the things that get better with age. So looks
No,
like we have a
that's
question maybe.
awesome. Yeah, I was actually pulling a question from Patrick and I hit the wrong button, but yeah, because this was one I was going to ask you anyway from Patrick about distilling wisdom.
Oh, wow. Well, what I talked about earlier about the practice of your life lessons and documenting them on a regular basis, and then asking yourself, how will it serve you moving forward? That is one step toward wisdom. There's also a free resource. If you don't find it on the MEA website, it isn't there yet. Then it'll be there soon, but I think it is there. It's why successful leaders value wisdom. So again, MEA website, and that's a whole little 45-minute, 1 hour read about the variety of ways a team or an individual can actually distill their wisdom. So rather than going in too much more detail, other than talking about that wisdom journal, I would suggest that Patrick look at that.
Yeah, and maybe take a step back for us, because I think it's clearly outlined in your book, and I want to encourage everyone to read it. But talk a little bit about the difference between knowledge and wisdom, because I think we live in the information age, and then we live in we can get from Chat GPT the answer to every single thing we've ever thought we wanted to know, right?
Yeah.
And so to my mind, wisdom at any age starts to become really crucial, human, not easily replicated by a bot or by AI. So talk to us about what wisdom means to you.
Well, let's start by saying that Peter Drucker in 1959 coined the term knowledge worker. Right. No one had any idea what he was talking about, because computers were not very prevalent in the world. But within 25 to 30 years, we had knowledge management as a practice in companies. We had a person who's in charge of knowledge for a company. And so knowledge workers, knowledge management became a thing. But in an era where knowledge is commoditized, I do believe that we're moving into an era where wisdom workers and wisdom management practices will become important. And that's why that ebook I talked about, Why Successful Leaders Value Wisdom, is valuable for that. But I think the difference between knowledge and wisdom is the following. Knowledge is often specific to a domain. Someone could have exceptional knowledge about coding. Like they are an amazing tech coder as an engineer. But that doesn't necessarily mean you want their advice on how to run a meeting, or on dating advice or something like that. When someone is wise, so I think knowledge is local. It's specific to a domain. Yeah. Wisdom is global. It is, someone who's wise, you might want their advice or have them ask you questions, because often the person who's wise is not about the person dispensing wisdom. It's about a wise person, just like a coach, is somebody who asks great questions.
Right.
And so wisdom, when you find someone who's wise, it's across domains, because wisdom is not just specific to a particular area, but it's almost having wisdom about life and life experience and about humans. So what are some qualities of wisdom? I mean, having ingenuity and creativity, having an intuition, having compassion. These are things that actually, AI have not necessarily figured out yet. They may. So maybe wisdom is going to be obsolescent, just like knowledge will be obsolescent.
Well, I would argue, just if I can say, I think one of the things, and I learned this at MEA, or deepened my knowledge, here I am using that word, but is that, wisdom is also about recognizing what you don't know.
Oh, so much so. Yeah. Anybody who proclaims to you, like, I'm the wisest person around, like, oh, no, I don't think so. Socrates is very famous about this in terms of saying he didn't know. So knowing what you don't know is a form of wisdom.
Right.
Let me just say that again. Knowing what you don't know is a form of wisdom, because it means you actually have objectivity and you're able to see your blind spots. So a wise person knows their shadow. To use some Carl Jung psychology terms here. Right. And a knowledgeable person doesn't necessarily. And so, a knowledgeable person might know Einstein's birthday, but forgets their wife's anniversary with them. And so, there you go. So we know people like that. Like, so, yeah.
Yeah,
So
and I think that is as maybe sort of simple as it sounds, is really key to our fear of artificial intelligence knowing everything, because
yeah,
this ability to recognize that the world, the life, the global perspective is a mystery. Like, we really don't know.
yeah,
And to use that as an opening to intuition and creativity is something that I don't know that artificial intelligence is going to replicate anytime soon.
yeah.
Because just because you can know every single book that's ever been read doesn't bring you that level of
Well,
unknowing.
it doesn't know what's going on in your gut. Yes, maybe artificial intelligence can get to the point of saying, like, based upon all the emails I've studied of yours, here's what I see.
Right.
But we have yet to get to a place where it understands what's going on in your gut or in your brain. Now, Elon Musk just launched this week the Neuralink, which is a chip they put in your brain, which is one step in the direction of saying, oh, yes, the computer does know what's going on in your brain. But that they haven't yet to get to the gut on that one. But it's like, yeah, it is a little scary. But on the other hand, in this era, the decade of 2020, I promise you, wisdom is trending up and knowledge is trending down in terms of how people want to spend their time, because all that knowledge is available to you on that little device in your pocket.
I love it. Yeah. So we're going to have a couple more minutes, and I think maybe what I'd like to hear from you, and this is previews of having you at our wonderful conference in May. So plug for please join us at Harvard in Boston on May 3rd and 4th, where Chip will be live with us on stage.
Yep.
And go to the instituteofcoaching.org website to sign up. But Chip, think about tips that you might want to share with coaches that really want to help their clients make these transitions more effective, be able to deepen their wisdom.
Well, my book has so many questions. I think the most important talent of a coach is to ask spectacular questions with empathy and using appreciative inquiry or whatever form you're using. And I'll give you a one question that I just love, which is, if a coach asked me the following, it would be really like a catalyst for me. Chip, what is it you know now or have done now that you wish you'd known or done, or wish you'd learned or done 10 years ago? So get that in your brain, Chip. What is that? And now here's the more important question, Chip. 10 years from now, what will you regret if you don't learn it or do it now? And anticipated regret of, if I'm now 63, so at 73, what will I regret?
Right.
Anticipated regret is a form of wisdom, and it is something that creates initiative and maybe a little bit of a catalyst. I asked that question of myself at 57, 6 years ago, when I had moved to Mexico as at that point at my primary residence. And I lived on a beach where we were creating MEA and near a big surf break. And so at 57, I asked that question and I realized, wow, I want to learn it. I want to learn Spanish because I live in Mexico, and it'll be harder at 67 than 57. And I want to learn to surf. And so at 57, I did two things that were at odds with a mindset I had, which is I'm too old to surf or learn a language. But when I thought about the future and worked backwards, it gave me the incentive to learn at age 57. So the book, Learning to Love Midlife, is full of questions like that. So this is a professional resource to the coaching community because there are all kinds of great questions in there that would be helpful with your clients.
I love it. And yeah, you're reminding me that one of my favorite parts of the book, and also when I was at MEA, was being asked, how are you being a beginner?
Yes. Most important thing
at
in life.
60 or 70 or whatever, what are you beginning? Because I just recently took the boomer adventure to move to Europe.
Yes.
And sort of there's my reinvention aspect, right? Post-COVID adventure. But I have to learn to speak Dutch.
Yeah. Good. Well, there you go.
And believe me, the brain is like, whoa, this is really intense. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do this. But
so the most important thing when learning a language is to have fun. And
Yeah.
there's a great TED talk from a polyglot, a woman who knows 8 languages. She's Eastern European. And it's all about having fun. So laughing helps you learn.
And laugh at yourself.
Laugh at yourself.
Less critical and more playful.
Fixed mindset to growth mindset. Growth mindset is improve and learn. Don't focus on proving yourself and winning. So
love it. So Lisa Strutt has the closing quote. She writes, "Wisdom is trending up. Knowledge is trending down." I love that. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah.
And please join us in May. If you haven't signed up, you're going to get to be with Chip live. And we're just scratching the surface of this great book and of his great work in the world around midlife transitions and wisdom. So Chip, I can't believe we're already out of time, but I love being with you, my friend.
Thank you.
And can't wait to see you and keep up the great, great inspiring work that you're doing.
Yeah, everybody, thank you. I hope you read the book. Hope you check out the MEA website. There's such great free resources there at the bottom header. I'm sorry, at the bottom footer. Yeah, and I hope to see you in Baja or Santa Fe or in Boston in May.
In Boston, yes. All right. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.